Hi everybody, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Juan. I am just one reader and I am here today with my second mega wrap-up of 2018. So what does that mean? What does it entail? Well, a couple of months ago I made my first mega wrap-up of 2018, and what I did back then was I talked about the first 25 books of 2018, the first 25 books that I had read at that point in the year. So now this is, I guess, a follow-up video. I will be discussing not the next 25 books because I have only just read, I think, my 42nd or 43rd book, but I will discuss books numbers 26 through 40 that I have read so far this year. I figured this is just a great moment, a great point in my reading year to be making another cut and to discuss quickly, just very quickly review or wrapping up the books that I have read. So yeah, I really enjoy doing these mega wrap-ups because as opposed to other wrap-ups or other kinds of recent reads, episodes, or videos in which I can talk with a lot more depth about these books, in these mega wrap-ups, it's just about seeing, for me, it's about seeing what I remember about my experience of reading the book. What did I enjoy, what did I not enjoy, and my overall rating. So without any further ado, let's get started. Book number 26 was A Prayer for Owen, Meany by John Irving. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I thought the beginning parts of the story worked very well because they were very immersive and they really captured the story of the protagonist's life, and I really like books that feel like they tell the story of a lifetime, of a complete life. However, I did have some problems with the writing. I thought it was cluttered, I thought it was way too long and in serious need of an editor, and there was just some things regarding the character of Owen Meany that became very unbelievable for me, borderline religious. So yeah, I did have some problems with it, but overall I gave it 3 stars. Book number 27 was On Sondheim, an opinionated guide by Ethan Morden. This was a wonderful piece of nonfiction about Stephen Sondheim and the genius that he was and that he still is, because he's still alive, miraculously. He's still with us. So I really loved this book, the way that it explored the author, his past, his mentors, and of course his influences, and how he became pretty much the most important voice, the most important auteur in musical theater history, and what he did, how what he did was truly really revolutionary. This also inspired me to write my own article about Stephen Sondheim and the psychoanalytical interpretation. So yeah, thank you, Ethan Morden. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Book 28 was The Butcher's Hook by Janet Ellis. This is a wild, dark, vicious roller coaster of a novel. It is so much fun, and I have been thinking about the character, about the protagonist, quite a lot lately. Basically, this is a book that I have been recommending to people again and again and again. It's a book that people will love because it is incredibly fast-paced and atmospheric, and it has a great sense of suspense. It's also really well written, and while I do not consider this a perfect novel or a novel or like a piece of literature with a capital L, I still love this, and it is absolutely one of my favorite novels that I've read so far this year, so I gave it 4.5 stars. Book number 29 was Delicate Edible Birds by Lauren Groff. This is a collection of short stories, and the title always suggested to me a very musical, melodic, poetic kind of vibe. Delicate Edible Birds. There's something beautiful and kind of magical about the way that those words put together sound like. And that is true for the rest of the content of the stories. Delicate Edible Birds is a wonderful collection by a really, truly wonderful writer. Lauren Groff writes using words that somehow manage to create color and sound and a very sensual experience. The stories are good, they're mostly about women, but yeah, I think Lauren Groff is an author that I will definitely keep looking out for. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Book number 30 was As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. I didn't like this book, but I will completely admit to the fact that my assessment of this book and my experience of this book was very unfair. I read this book without being in the proper mindset or in the proper frame of mind. Just I was not in the right place to be reading a novel such as this one. This is a heavily it's a very beautifully written novel, written in a stream of consciousness way. It is, I guess, difficult to read in that regard, and it certainly was for me. It was a challenge, and I was honestly not up to the challenge at that point in which I read it. So I know that my not liking this book was very unfair, and it came from a place of just not understanding and not getting along with the text. However, I did not like it. I gave it 2 stars, and I was bored to tears. However, like I said, in all honesty and with humility, I can say that I will eventually come back to William Faulkner and try to remedy this experience. Book 31 was The House of Riverton by Kate Morton. I gave this 1 star. I thought it was incredibly boring and completely underwhelming, very dissatisfying. I did not care about anything that went on in this novel. I did not care for the characters. And when you don't care about the characters as a reader, everything else is pretty much, I mean, you can forget about it. It's not going to happen. The setting was kind of cool in a Downton Abbey kind of way, but it was just not good. It was not good. The writing was so cheesy and so cluttered and over the top and very melodramatic without really having any substance to support it. So yeah, I would not recommend this book, but I would recommend checking out some other Kate Morton novels, such as The Distant Hours or The Forgotten Garden, not this. Book 32 was More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. This was a very interesting book to read because it kind of played with the young adult genre in a way, since it used many tropes of that genre, but it introduced a kind of twist to it, a very interesting concept that raised some very important questions regarding morality and ethics and a lot of things, really, a lot of issues that I enjoyed exploring in this kind of young adult context. However, this book was ultimately very frustrating because the author didn't really explore it further, and we just got a regular YA novel with an otherwise really interesting concept, but that was pretty much it. So I did not enjoy this as much. I thought it was not very well executed. I gave this 2 stars. Book 33 was The Birds by Daphne du Maurier. This is a collection of short stories, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I thought this was remarkable. It was so enjoyable, and also it allowed itself to be analyzed very well. I made a separate review for this in which I went into the stories in a lot of detail in terms of the psychoanalytical processes that are depicted in these stories and within these sets of characters. Really loved this. I thought all the stories were very cinematic and Hitchcockian feeling, which is funny since the title story, The Birds, was actually made into a Hitchcock movie. And yeah, that's pretty much the kind of oppressive, claustrophobic feel that these stories have. It's an amazing collection. Book 34 was Peggy and Me by Miranda Hart. Not a lot to say about this book. I thought it was funny at first, but then it got really repetitive really quickly and a little bit annoying. But overall, at least the beginning, the first half was fun, so I gave it 2.5 stars. Book number 35 was Blandins Castle by P.G. Wodehouse. This was just pure, unadulterated, joyful fun. It was wonderful. It's the most fun that I've had in 2018 reading a book. I fell in love with P.G. Wodehouse. I have started my hopefully lifelong love affair with him and with his writing, with his characters, and with his wacky stories that contain some really extravagant, eccentric, quirky stuff, but ultimately feel very human. So yeah, love this. I gave it 5 out of 5. Book number 36 was The Tidal Zone by Sarah Moss, a very popular book. It's a book that people have been raving about, and I did not like it. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I thought the writing was like a barrier that did not allow me to get into the story. It did not allow me to connect to the characters or feel anything. So basically, I was looking at everything that was happening at arm's length from a very great distance. I was very frustrated by the writing because, like I said, the story had a lot of potential. It was a very literary kind of story with very interesting characters. The author did something relevant and different in terms of gender roles, and the way that this particular family works and what they have to go through is pretty rough. So I was interested in it, absolutely, but the writing was just not for me. 2 stars. Book 37 was Infinite Home by Kathleen Alcott, and something very similar happened with this one. I thought the cast of characters was very interesting and very quirky. I thought the story had some promise, and I really liked the setting. It's an apartment building in Brooklyn, so a lot of ingredients were there. However, sadly for me, the author's writing style is just the type of writing style that I really don't like. It was cluttered, it was extravagant. I basically felt like the author, and please forgive my horribly explicit and graphic hand gesture, I felt like the author was just masturbating left and right. I'm sorry for this. And you know, the author is a woman, so my gesture just tells you how narcissistic I am, I guess. But yeah, I just felt like the author was masturbating left and right with her own words and her purple prose and her adjectives and adverbs, and I don't really care for that kind of thing anymore. There were some good things, some redeeming qualities, but yeah, this is just not the right kind of writing style for me, so I gave it 2 stars. Book 38 was Pastoralia by George Saunders. This is the second short story collection by George Saunders that I've read this year, and again, this man receives 5 stars. He is the undeniable master of the short story format, in my opinion. No one does it the way that he does. He is just on a complete different level than anybody else. No one can do what he does quite exactly as he does it, and he's the best. He's the most. When I read this particular collection of short stories, I was completely and constantly transformed and challenged as a reader, thinking very critically about what was happening, because in order to enjoy these stories, you have to cognitively and metacognitively engage with the writer and with the writing, and I think that is part of the fun. So this might sound like a very intellectual kind of enterprise, but in reality, George Saunders is such a fun writer. So even while you are working all of this stuff out and what he's trying to do and what he's trying to say and the themes and all of that, it's incredibly fun and incredibly revelatory. It's just fun and makes you think, and it blows your mind. He is a writer that I think will be remembered as one of the most important groundbreaking writers of his generation, or even of the 21st century. I don't know when this was published, but yeah, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Book number 39 was Less by Andrew Sean Greer, winner of the 2018 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. I gave this 5 stars. I thought it was absolutely brilliant and really, really intelligently written. However, it is a book that a lot of people will probably don't like because they will read it in a very kind of shallow, superficial way. And so if you look at the story just at a surface level, what the story is about and what the character is like and what happens and what's on the text, you can probably just shrug your shoulders and go like, well, it was good, but it was nothing special. However, I think this is the kind of book that plays with that, because it is seemingly very simple, but in reality, the way that it treats and deals with certain issues, for example, homosexuality in our current contemporary, point in time, I think is really cleverly done, and I think in a couple of pages he manages to really delve into something that is very important to discuss and very important to think critically about. So yeah, I thought this was excellent, and also a great tragic comedy. It is incredibly funny, and I fell in love with the writing and with the character. Finally, book 40, If on a Winter's Night a Traveler by Italo Calvino. I really liked how this book was very good and very accurate at portraying and observing the little and big quirks that readers have and the way that readers look at the world and the things that reading can do for you, the way that reading works, what reading means to a person, what reading can be and do for a person. I thought philosophically, intellectually, it was a very stimulating book. My problem with this book was exactly that it was more enjoyable for me to think about the book than reading the book itself. So it was not a fun experience reading it necessarily, but it is a very interesting piece of fiction that will make you contemplate and ponder your own reading and your reading personality, I guess. So it wasn't a complete waste. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So that was my second mega wrap up of 2018. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments down below and I will see you next time.